As part of our World 11 series, which has now seen us look at the best footballers in each position building up to our World 11 video next week, today we turn our attention to the potential managers of that side. This was, without a doubt, the hardest 7 of the entire series, simply due to the difficulties involved in coming up with a definitive criteria. How do you compare someone like Jose Mourinho, who is one of the most successful managers of all time, but has seen his stock fall a little over the last few years, with someone like Mauricio Pochettino, who has won absolutely nothing, but has done a quite remarkable job at Tottenham and with his previous clubs? It's a thankless task, so the criteria I've landed at isn't an exact science. Basically, if you said to me, here's your team, you can have any manager in the world right now, these will be my top 7 and in this order. So there's no point telling me so-and-so is finished, or that so-and-so has never won anything in the comments. That isn't the criteria. It's purely my opinion. You will almost certainly disagree, and that's a good thing. How tedious would it be if you all agreed with me? Here are our 7 best managers in world football. Carlo Ancelotti. Getting us off to a strong start in 7th place is experienced Napoli boss Carlo Ancelotti. One of only 3 managers to have won the Champions League 3 times, Ancelotti lifted the trophy twice at AC Milan and once at Real Madrid. He has won league titles in France, England and Italy and has an overall career win percentage just under 59. Ancelotti's greatest success as both a player and as a manager came at AC Milan, where he won 15 trophies in total. When he first started out in top flight management with Parma, Ancelotti had a bit of a reputation as a steely, defensive and somewhat joyless coach. But he quickly became a lot more tactically versatile at Juventus and is now renowned as being a really personable man manager. Fast forward to the present day, Ancelotti is just coming to the end of his first season in Naples, where he has guided Napoli to a 2nd place finish, miles ahead of 3rd place Inter Milan and miles behind Juventus in top spot. MASSIMILIANO Allegri. Sticking in Italy for 6th place, the man who has prevented Carlo Ancelotti's Napoli side from getting anywhere near the Serie A title is Massimiliano Allegri. In fairness, it's somewhat difficult to assess Allegri since Juve have been so dominant in Italian football for so long now, and it is right that they should top the division with the quality in their squad. However, when Antonio Conte departed in 2014 and Allegri arrived, there were many who doubted whether Allegri could maintain the stronghold Conte had over the domestic game. Not only did Allegri continue to dominate in Serie A, he established Juve as a force in Europe once again, reaching 2 Champions League finals in his first 3 seasons, whilst Conte had never got the team beyond the quarter-finals. Allegri seems to be a real calming figure on the touchline and someone who players naturally seem to take to. The result has been 11 trophies in 5 years at Juve, in addition to the Scudetto he won at AC Milan. He's obviously a top-class manager and we think 6th place is fair. Jose Mourinho. The most successful active manager in world football, Jose Mourinho has won an incredible 25 trophies since taking the reins as Porto manager 17 years ago. That record includes 2 Champions League titles, both achieved as underdogs at Porto and Inter Milan, as well as 8 league titles in 4 different countries. If he were to retire tomorrow, age 56, Mourinho would go down as one of the greatest managers of all time. It is as much a mark of his genius that he still makes this 7 as it is a mark of how difficult his last few years have been that he is only 5th there. Since winning the Premier League title in 2014-15 with Chelsea, things have never seemed quite right with Jose. His swagger and humour with the press had turned to a less jovial, more confrontational and rather whiny approach. It's difficult to assess Mourinho's time at Manchester United. He won 3 trophies in 2.5 years, but never challenged for either the Premier League or the Champions League. United haven't done either of those things since Fergie left though, and they hardly look like doing so anytime soon. Mourinho's next move will be really interesting and most likely career-defining. He is, or at least has, been a world-class manager and deserves 5th at the lowest. Diego Simeone. Much like Jose Mourinho, Diego Simeone is a pragmatic boss who would happily sit 11 men behind the ball and pull off every dirty trick in the book if it meant winning a trophy. Simeone has won 7 trophies in 7 full seasons as manager at Atletico Madrid, which is fewer than many of the managers in this 7, but still mightily impressive given the teams Atletico are competing with on the domestic and European stage. Atletico were marooned in mid-table when Simeone took over in December 2011, and they hadn't finished in the top 3 in La Liga since the 1991-92 season. In Simeone's 7 full seasons in charge, the club have never finished outside of the top 3, finishing as runners-up twice and winning an improbable La Liga title back in 2013-14. What's more, it could so nearly be even more impressive, with Simeone having guided Atletico to 2 Champions League finals, but the club having fallen at the final hurdle on both occasions. Simeone creates teams which are disciplined, tough to break down, and willing to die for the cause. He's also very tactically astute, and for our money, he'd be my 4th choice as manager for a World 11. Maurizio Pochettino. We spoke in the introduction about what I'm now labelling the Pochettino-Mourinho dilemma. Maurizio Pochettino has never won a trophy as a manager, although his first could be a pretty notable one if Tottenham were to beat Liverpool in the Champions League final, and yet here he is, coming 3rd in a list of the best managers in the world. There will be those who consider that to be ridiculous, and part of me thinks they have a point, but by the criteria for this 7, that's where I put him. Pochettino has done an absolutely incredible job at Tottenham Hotspur. He inherited a ragtag bunch of misfits containing some real gems and no shortage of deadweights. He was ruthless in getting rid of those who didn't fit into his plans, inspired in developing the club's young players, and shrewd in the transfer market. Spurs have spent a tiny fraction of the amount of money of the teams they are competing with, and yet Pochettino has established them as a force not only in the English game, but in Europe this season. Tottenham had only finished in the top 4 twice in the 24 years prior to Poch's arrival, and they've now finished in the top 4 in each of the last 4 seasons. Having spent absolutely nothing in 2 consecutive transfer windows, Pochettino secured a top 4 finish once again this season and has guided his Tottenham team to the final of the Champions League. Jurgen Klopp. Talking of trophyless managers with a Champions League final to look forward to, much like Maurizio Pochettino, Jurgen Klopp hasn't won anything in almost 4 seasons at Liverpool. That will of course all change for one of them on June 1st, but for now, it is an obvious blot on 2 otherwise outstanding copybooks. Klopp joined Liverpool in October 2015, and the club finished 8th in his first, albeit not full season in charge, behind the likes of Southampton and West Ham. A big job needed to be done, and Klopp embraced the challenge with open arms. Coutinho left, but that money was wisely reinvested in the likes of Van Dijk and Alisson. Liverpool have had a brilliant front 3 for a couple of seasons, but that was twinned with the best defence in the Premier League this season. The result was just 1 defeat all season and an incredible 97 points. That would be enough to waltz to the title and have things wrapped up around March time in most seasons, but not in 2018-19. With a relentless Man City pipping the Reds to the title. Prior to arriving at Anfield, Klopp had done brilliant jobs at Mainz and Dortmund, and he's our narrow runner-up here. The honourable mentions. It's very difficult to acknowledge everyone here, but I should point out that naturally, we are only focused on elite level managers. In England alone, the likes of Rafa Benitez, Eddie Howe, Chris Wilder, and Sean Dyche have done remarkable jobs with limited resources. But it becomes a very different 7 if you try to account for those not at the pinnacle of the game. In terms of those who were in contention for this 7, we should first mention a couple of Frenchmen, namely Didier Deschamps and Zinedine Zidane. The international game is markedly different to club management, with very little time to work with your players and implement your ideas on the training ground. That makes the 2 difficult to compare, but Deschamps did an excellent job at Marseille prior to taking the reins as France boss, and has since guided his country to the final of Euro 2016 and World Cup glory for only the 2nd time in 2018. His former international teammate Zinedine Zidane is equally difficult to assess, having won 3 Champions League titles in 3 seasons at Real Madrid. That is an incredible achievement, even with a wonderfully gifted squad, but it's still very early days in Zizou's managerial career. You just felt as though he might have got out at the right time at Real, but if he can bounce back from this season and win either a La Liga or Champions League next season, that would really mark him out as a top-class coach. Returning to the international game, Joachim Löw deserves some love for the outstanding job he has done with the German national team over a number of years, albeit they did suffer a rather notable setback in 2018. Former Juventus, Italy and Chelsea boss Antonio Conte has done a very impressive job in all 3 of those roles, and he came close to featuring. Elsewhere, we could mention current and former Barcelona bosses Ernesto Valverde and Luis Enrique, Chelsea boss Maurizio Sarri, who has had a very topsy-turvy start to life at the bridge, Inter Milan boss Luciano Spalletti, and former Dortmund and now PSG manager Thomas Tuchel. There are also a number of still active or recently active managers who have previously achieved great things in the game like Fabio Capello, Marcelo Lippi, Guus Hiddink, Arsene Wenger, and even Sven-Göran Eriksson, who have had excellent managerial careers, but we wouldn't take them over our 7 right now. Right, that's it for our honourable mentions. Here is your top spot. Pep Guardiola. The best manager in world football right now as far as I'm concerned is Pep Guardiola. A group of friends of mine were recently arguing about who had done the better job, Klopp at Liverpool or Guardiola at Man City, and I think it's an incredibly difficult question. Klopp had a much larger rebuilding job to do, less resources to strengthen his squad, and has reached 2 Champions League finals. However, he has won nothing. Guardiola inherited a much stronger squad and was given the freedom to spend £50 million on 2 fullbacks. He has won 198 points in 2 seasons, he's won 5 trophies, which could soon become 6, and all playing a beautiful brand of football which many said couldn't be done in the Premier League. At Barcelona, Bayern Munich and Man City, Guardiola has almost always had the strongest squad in his respective league. However, his success and the way he's achieved that success has been remarkable. Those who call him a checkbook manager overlook the incredible work he does on the training ground. The way he improves and develops players is quite special. At Man City alone, just take a look at the likes of Raheem Sterling, John Stones, Bernardo Silva, Fernandinho, even Sergio Aguero, all completely different players under his watch. It was a similar story at Bayern and Barca too, and it's clear to see Pep is not just a world-class manager, but a world-class coach. Good arguments can be made in favour and against Guardiola, but we think his managerial career has been a work of art. And if I could have anyone managing my World 11, it'd be him. So that's it for our 7. Thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more from us if you enjoyed the video, and you can now also follow us on Twitter for more ramblings from me. Our username is simply @HITC Sevens.